Hey guys, Micah from blackbearcustomkydex. I have a video for you today on a pile of sheaths for Edward. This is his second time ordering from me, and I believe this makes the second largest order possibly I've had from one customer at one time. Trying to think back on that. I think Scott from Colorado still has the record there. He ordered like a dozen sheaths at one time. So as far as like a non-production order, I've done 50 some odd sheaths for one guy, but that was like a commercial order. So for personal use, this would probably be the second largest single order that I've received. So Edward ordered a lot of really cool stuff. Like I said, this is his second time ordering from me, and the first time around he had gotten some piggyback systems with universal tech lock adapters, and as you guys know, that's a really modular setup. It allows you to swap out whatever piece of gear you have the tech lock adapter mounted to. That is going to allow you to swap different pieces of gear onto that piece as a piggyback. So as long as you have a tech lock mounted to an item, you'd be able to swap that into the tech lock adapter regardless of what the item that the tech lock is mounted to is. So it could be a flashlight, it could be a multi-tool, it could be a small knife, could be a gun, could be whatever else. Any kind of holder that's got a tech lock on it, you can plug into that adapter. So it's a really cool, versatile, modular setup that a lot of people really like. And Edward apparently really liked it because he's getting 5 of them in this one order. So let's take a look here at all the different little components, and then I'll get it all on the table. First things first, I'd made him a leather dangler last time around. He asked if I could put snaps in it so it's a little easier to get on and off the belt. You don't have to weave your belt through it, but you get all the same benefits that you were going to get before. So we got that. He also asked for some extra tech locks and mollies, and I believe, I'm going to throw some hardware in a bag for you, Ed. But we got 6 mollies. I'm giving him 4 large and 2 small. These are Gen 3 molly locks from BladeTech. These are the best out there in my opinion. And 2 tech locks. I will provide some hardware and mounting and spacers and all that for everything. And then let's get into the actual project. So he's got a couple of the CRKT Foltz minimalist knives. This one is the minimalist Bowie. I've got one of these. I really like it. He also asked for the Caraman, and so this is basically a karambit, or very similar to a karambit. So it's got that hawkbill shaped blade. You can very comfortably carry it reverse or forward grip, and of course these really deep grooves, these deep finger choils, make it extremely secure in your hand. So whether it's slippery or wet or whatever else, I don't think you'd be too in danger of losing your grips. Really cool knives. I love these things. He wanted both of these in Kryptek Typhon, carrying on a tech lock. The Caraman was actually a real pain in the butt, and what I ended up finding was that you can get really good retention with it. You can get a good ballistic one-handed draw. You can see even with the weight of the tech lock on there, this isn't just falling off. It's on there really secure, but it draws very easily. The only thing is, for some reason, you don't get a click going in. So inserting it, I could probably play with it a little bit more to make it get a click, but I'm not sure I want to mess with the retention where it's at because it's such a smooth and comfortable draw and feels secure to me. So I think I like it the way it is. I sent him a short video of it, and he says it came out perfect, so we're happy with that. The Bowie, of course, does have good ballistic draw. Click going back in. So both of these came out really nice. Moving on, we have this is the first one you've seen like this, at least on my channel. He sent me this large tin and asked if I could make a holder for it. And typically you guys see that I do these kind of wraparound holders. It's basically like one long rectangular sheet of Kydex that I just wrap around and then rivet it together. And that's what I was kind of trying to push him on. And so he said, you know what, you do what you think is going to be best. But when it came time to build it, I took a look back at the drawings that he had sent of what he was hoping to have me build. It was something like this. And so I took a crack at it and found a way to really make it work. So the shock cord is kind of like the centerpiece to this. It really does ultimately complete this sheath and make it work a little better by squeezing these two wings inward and adding a little bit of retention. Without it, there was plenty, and it does work okay, but you could feel when you go to pull the tin out how little effort it requires to actually unseat the tin. So if you're out there in the brush walking around, you could probably whack that on something and maybe it would pop the tin free. But with the shock cord on there, it's just got this little crisscross pattern. It's bound pretty tight on there, and it's literally just pulling these two wings together and increasing the retention on your tin. So you do have options as far as how you want to remove this thing. I would probably just pull up from one of the bottom corners because it's really easy to do. But if your fingers are sticky enough, you know, barring conditions, you might be able to just kind of work it up from the face like that with a little bit of pressure. So pretty simple there. Obviously, you can also invert the tin. You know, it doesn't have to be hinge up. You can go hinge down. You can go lid down. It really doesn't matter. So this can go any one of the four directions that you've got on the tin there. So pretty cool. I like how this came out. And you know, one other thing I'll say would be really cool with this style holder is if you happen to have a tin that you had like Cerakoted or you know, designed in any way, and you just want to be able to see the design of the tin, if you want that to be the most prominent feature of the sheath, then this kind of open face design allows that. This is also on a tech lock. I basically just used a piece of metal that is sold by one of my Kydex suppliers as more or less a tech lock molding prop, so that you can like stick it to a gun or whatever you're doing and then press it and it'll form the indentation that's necessary, that is not only compatible with the tech lock but also will get the hardware well away from whatever you're mounting or whatever you're sheathing, so that you don't scratch it up. So that's what you're seeing there, that T shape. All right, moving on, he wanted a holster for his Colt 1911, and this one is going to be in Typhon as well. So I don't own a 1911. I had to buy the rubber replica. This is the blue gun for it. They tend to be pretty accurate. Excuse me. So he had asked if I could make him a holster that has a concealment wing, is IWB, and I don't remember if we had talked about it or not, but I can't remember if he had said he wants it to be OWB compatible as well. But what I did on the back side was I molded, you can see here there's like this outcrop and all these holes there. These are compatible with the tech lock. So if he does decide that he wants to try carrying OWB at any point, he can just mount a tech lock right there. It's really easy to do. You just put the female hardware through the holes sticking outward, put a rubber spacer on it, put the tech lock over it, and just use a screw gun to drill it down into place. So I think this thing came out nice. It looks good. It's got a great positive click in, and you can do a lot as far as ride height and retention adjustment. Being IWB, I leave a little bit of rattle in there because when you put this into your waistband, there's going to be compression on it between your body, your belt, your pants. And that little bit of compression is going to eliminate that rattle. I'm really minimally pinching this right now, but just that little bit of compression makes a world of difference. And it doesn't cause you to have any kind of hang up. Whereas if you tighten this down all the way so that there's no rattle, not all the way, but if you tighten it down to the point where you get no rattle, and then you put it in your waistband, you're adding more retention on top of the extra retention, and then all of a sudden you've got a difficult draw. So I just really like to have a good, smooth, clean draw with minimal effort so that you can really get your stuff out in an emergency if you need it. You can see I've done the concealment claw a little bit different. I didn't want to have a big, so usually I just do them in black, and I use 0.125 inch thick Kydex. This time I used 0.093 Typhon wrapped around a piece of 093 black. So it's got that kind of double layered look to it. I think it looks really cool, and it certainly serves the function of stiffing it up and making it adequately thick so that you're not going to have to worry about this bending and flexing over time. The whole reason I make my own claws, there are a bunch of different companies making mod wings, concealment claws, Vanguard claw, whatever else you want to call it. The reason I make my own is because I have found that all of them that I've used are either insubstantial as far as actually tucking your handle, or over time they flex and bend and become basically a moot point. They don't really do what they're designed to do. So the whole point of having one of these on here is so that as your belt travels through your belt clip, normally it would take this path and come down right to the edge of the holster, and it would just come out around. And you can see the overhang of your handle. So you might have your handle printing against your t-shirt, meaning you can actually see the contour of the handle poking from the inside out on your t-shirt. Whereas with this claw on there, the belt is forced to take a wider path to go around, so you have much less of the handle exposed, if any. And it also, depending on how high up you put it, I put mine just a tad, I put mine just a little bit higher than where the belt comes out of the belt clip. And the reason is because that actually then puts a lot of torque and forces your handle inward. So you're going to wind up with, as you're looking down at it, you're going to wind up tucking your handle into your body, so it stays really, really snug against your stomach or your love handles or wherever you're carrying your back. So it's a really nice feature, and I just like being able to control the height, the width. It's just nice. So anyway, I build my own claws because I find that they perform much, much better than any of the manufactured claws I've used so far. So, all right, so we got that. Going along with this, we have a double mag pouch. This is also meant to be carried inside the waistband. You can see it's got two grip hooks on the sides here, and these, so you just, if you're looking down at this, this would go on your left side. You drop it inside the waistband, pull the hooks up and over your waistband, and clip them onto your belt. And then you've got the adjustable retention here on the sides, so you might have to swing that out to be able to fully adjust the retention there, but you can adjust the retention, tighten, loosen, whatever you got to do. The rounds are facing forward and the magazine is upside down. I usually do this. This is how I carry my own, although my own is actually attached to my holster that I carry appendix, but the whole point is that the rounds are forward, so that all you have to do is draw and flip the magazine over. There are different ways to do it, and there are different opinions out there as far as what's optimal. This is what I like. This is what Edward wanted, so this is what we went with. You can see it flexes. I've just taken a couple pieces of rubber coated nylon, basically the same stuff that you'd find soft loops are made of. It's just rubber coated nylon, very, very durable, and it's got a lot of flex to it. So this is going to go inside the waistband, contour to whatever his body shape is, and he'll be all set to go. The only thing with these that I found really strange was that the two magazines are actually not the exact same size, and I found that out because I had tried swapping the two magazines. So pulling this rear one to go to the front, that's fine, but the front to go to the rear, it's extremely tight. So I would just highly recommend keeping them, maybe even mark them so you know which one's got to go in which holder, but you definitely don't want to force it in there, be carrying it around with a really tough draw, and then the moment you need it, your hand slips off it when you're trying to draw it out because it's just too tight or something like that. So do take care with that, and practice, practice, practice as always. All right, so now we've got the 4 Universal Tech Lock adapters, or UTAs as I call them. So these, basically, like I said, the whole purpose of this device is so that you can take any piece of gear that has a tech lock on it, let's say this tin holder, and you can just snap the tech lock in, slide it down into place, and all of a sudden you've got this riding on another piece of gear. So you'd have the tech lock adapter already attached to, let's say, a big sheath, and then you could plug this into it. And when you want to use your tin on your waist and lose the sheath, you just pull it out, open the tech lock, slide it onto your belt, and move out. So you've got the option right there. And the other cool thing is, like, if you know that you're going to be doing a camping trip or something and you need a good bushcrafting knife plus a good chopping knife, you can take this tin off and then grab whatever bushcrafting knife with the tech lock on it and throw that into the adapter. So you can see the modularity. It's like playing Legos, but you really get to pick and choose what equipment that you bring with you. The only caveat I'll tell you right now, it's not 100% universal, because there are situations like maybe the position of the UTA is limited because the knife that it's mounted on, or the sheath that it's mounted on, isn't that big. And then if you're trying to mount another knife on there, you might have some weird spacing as far as the handles go. That's something that I can't totally control, especially if I'm not the one building all of the equipment specifically to work with each component one with another. So it's something you definitely have to be mindful of. But for the most part, you get universal adaptivity and modularity with these, which is really cool. And so, bringing this full circle, your final piece of gear, I saved this for last because I think it's the coolest of them, of the pieces. We've got a CRKT Kangi hatchet, and I built this sheath for him. You can see the OD green and Typhon color scheme that we've got going. And he wanted a UTA adapter, or UTA mounted directly to this, so that he could switch between the Caraman and the Bowie. So that's a pretty cool option. And he can also technically switch between the tin or whatever else he's got a tech lock on. It's hard to do it from that angle. Let me show you how I do it. This would be the angle that you're actually seeing it if you're using it too. So it's too narrow at the top to just put those tapered feet into it. So what you want to do is put the feet almost perpendicular in the top, and then just kind of twist it down into place. You got to kind of keep constant pressure downward toward the back, toward the inside of that UTA. But once you get those feet seated, make sure you do it high enough that you don't snag the, this is just like a little, I don't even know what to call it. It's a little tab there that just helps create resistance so your tech lock can't pop out. But once you've got that seated in there, you just slide it down all the way into the adapter, and there you go. So this is a really cool setup. I'm super pleased. I don't know that I would necessarily carry the tin on there just because that's extremely wide, but you could. Removing anything with the tech lock adapter can be a little bit difficult. You just got to use steady, constant force, maybe wiggle it a little bit, and you'll get it out of there. So you get the point, though. You can very easily swap between different pieces of gear, piggybacked onto whatever piece that you've got. So this is a really cool option. As far as how this thing works, so you can see it's riding on mollies. I've put a molly plate on here, and it's on there really, really rugged. The mollies are, looking at it right now, they're not 100% perfectly lined up, but they're close enough. I have tested it on molly webbing. It does work just fine. You've got a couple points right here, these D-rings. These are compatible with duffel clips or HK clips, which you will find at the end of a Beach and Baldric sling, Beach and Tactical Baldric sling. And Edward already owns at least one of those. And so he's going to be able to take that Baldric sling attached to this and then carry his hatchet. So the only thing I wasn't totally clear about was, do you want to carry it with the chopping, with the blade forward like this? So if you're carrying it as a right-handed Baldric system, the back of this would actually be facing forward, similar to how the handle of a knife would normally be facing forward in a Baldric carry. And that would keep the knife, the piggyback element, facing outward. However, if you want to switch things up. You do have the ability. This is 100% ambidextrous. How I've done this is I've got, you can kind of see right there, this little bump underneath the UTA, and you can see it on this side as well, hidden behind this plate. I put basically a molding prop, a bar straight across the front. It's perfectly aligned on both sides, and I've drilled it out so that it's compatible with either this plate or the UTA itself. That means that you can mount the UTA to this side of the sheath and the plate to this side and totally reverse what you've got going on. I'm going to tell you right now, Edward, if you decide to do this, this is a particularly strange sheath because let's take a look at the Kangi. Oh boy. It's a little bit of a, here we go. Try to loosen up the draw a little bit more, but this is a really tough hatchet to sheath because it's so thin. Normally there's a lot more taper on the metal, so it makes it a lot easier to create good retention and all that. It's really hard. All right, so because it's so thin, you cannot get your fingers up inside of it to hold the female hardware that's sticking out. Basically, I have, you can see these rubber washers there, and here, here, and here. In those spaces, I have female hardware inside this sheath poking outward, and the rubber spacers are kind of holding them in place, making sure that they don't fall into the sheath. So when you unscrew this, if you're going to do it, when you unscrew, you need to use very, very minimal pressure downward. Like put your screwdriver or your drill bit or whatever into the Phillips head there, and very little pressure downward, because you can very easily, when that male screw starts to unspool, you can use that extra length that's unspooled as basically a push rod to push your female hardware into the inside of this sheath, and then you've pretty much lost it. You can spread it open at the bottom and have the hardware fall out, but good luck getting it back through that hole. It's going to be darn near impossible. I had it happen to me when I realized I had mounted something wrong and had to adjust it. It took me an hour to get that one screw back in place, and so it can be done, but it's seriously, it's a huge pain in the butt. So use very, very minimal downward pressure to avoid pushing the embedded hardware into the sheath. All right, so we've got an OD green sheath with a Typhon upper layer. I also did that because I needed to make, with the shape of it and with how narrow the blade is, I wanted to make sure that this was nice and stiff, and especially because we were going to be mounting the UTA on it, I wanted to, excuse me guys, I wanted to make sure that there was plenty of rigidity so that the UTA wasn't just flexing around. So a lot of the time when I do an upper layer with some kind of mounting thing, sometimes I'll do it for the baldric points. What I'll do is I'll just form the sheath regularly, and then I'll put a molding prop onto the sheath and form a second layer over it. In this particular instance, I actually put the molding prop directly on the hatchet, formed the sheath, and then formed the upper layer. So you do have two layers of contoured outcropping there, whatever you want to call it. So it's extremely rugged, it's extremely durable. I also opted to put this extra eyelet down here, kind of level with the bottom of the head of the hatchet, because I wanted there to be a lot of compression there to prevent the hatchet from being able to slip out easy, especially having that spike there. You don't want the spike to accidentally kind of come unseated and be exposed. That can be really dangerous. So while it is a pain in the butt to draw, I think it's worth it because you have a lot of safety and ruggedness built into this one sheath. Putting it back into the sheath is actually fairly easy. I would just go with your front corner here, right up through where the handle goes, and then you can just kind of slide it in place. So it is pretty easy to put back in. The tendency when you go to draw is to pull the chopping part out first, the front of the blade. If you do that, it's going to get lodged. There is something with the distance between the top corner and the spike. The top corner cannot rotate down without that spike getting pushed backward, and as you can see, there's no room for it to go there. So you cannot rotate the chopping end down first as you would with a hatchet that doesn't have the spike on the back. So be very, very cautious with that. How I'm doing it, I'm basically pulling it straight out the bottom. There we go. Like I said, I'm going to try to loosen it up a little bit more, but you go much more than it is right now, and you're going to wind up with it being loose. So hopefully I can find a good happy medium. I really like how this came out. The draw is the only thing that I'm not super pleased with, and I will work on that here before I ship it. But all right, that's pretty much it. And also the hard draw is why I specifically put a handle on it. Just makes it a little easier. And the higher up you grip on the handle of the hatchet itself, I think the safer the draw is. Feels a little bit more controlled. So I'm gripping it right up over the handle itself. There it is. So, all right, guys, that's what I got for you. I would love your opinions down below. Tell me what you think of all this gear. Tell me what you think of the knives, Colt 1911, this Kangi hatchet. Love all your opinions, conversations down below. Let me know what you think of the Universal Tech Lock adapter. I really love it. I think it's a really cool piece of gear. It's something I came up with that just satisfied a specific request that one customer had given me a few years ago now, and it's evolved over time and become a little bit more complex, but I think that what I've arrived at, this design now, is super strong. It's really versatile, and I'm just happy with how it came out. So all right, guys, opinions down below. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you for sticking around, and tune in for the next one. God bless.